I love his smile. He has a beautiful smile. And look at his eyes. They just sparkle. My name is Krauseneck, and I'm Jim's wife. I've been his wife for 23 years. These were beautiful, happy days before this whole nightmare started.
This is the axe that was found in Cathy's head.
The case is known as the brain axe murder.
It was a typical day on February 19, 1982, in Brighton, a suburb of Rochester in New York. But the same couldn't be said for the Krauseneck residence. 30-year-old James Krauseneck, who had spent the day at work, returned home to a chilling sight. His 29-year-old wife, Cathleen Krauseneck, was found dead on their bed with a fatal axe wound to her head. What events might have transpired in the Krauseneck household on that fateful day? Who could be responsible for committing such a heinous crime? Today, we embark on a journey into the past, seeking answers into the case of Cathleen Krauseneck, a somber event that unfolded back in 1982. Now, without further delay, let's delve into the details of this intriguing mystery. Brighton, nestled as a suburban enclave within the charming city of Rochester, presents a unique blend of tranquility and accessibility. This picturesque neighborhood boasts tree-lined streets, well-maintained parks, and a distinct sense of community. The close proximity to Rochester's urban amenities offers residents the best of both worlds, the serene ambiance of suburban life and the convenience of city living. With its top-rated schools and family-friendly attractions, Brighton captures the essence of a modern suburban haven. Amidst all of this allure, it's intriguing to note that cases of profound impact, like the one we'll be covering today, have unfolded at the very heart of Brighton. On April 14, 1952, Kathleen Rose Schlosser was born in Mount Clemens, Michigan, USA. She stood as the second eldest among 6 siblings in the family consisting of 4 girls and 2 boys. Her mother, Anna Teresa Schlosser, was a homemaker, and her father, Robert Schlosser, earned a living as a truck driver, initially working for a company engaged in concrete transportation. Eventually, he ventured into entrepreneurship, establishing his own gravel business known as Schlosser Trucking. Affectionately referred to as Cathy by those close to her, she radiated a dynamic and spirited personality, fully engaged whether at play or in her academic pursuits. Her radiant and vibrant appearance contributed to her popularity at the Michigan High School where she was enrolled. Within that very high school, fate introduced her to a young man, James Krauseneck, a reserved yet amiable and sporty individual hailing from an influential family within the town. And fate held tangible plans in store for the two. Yet their journey to becoming sweethearts didn't unfold during high school. It was at Western Michigan University that the spark between them ignited. And soon, on May 3, 1974, in a Mount Clemens church, the two got married. By 1975, Cathy held a bachelor's degree, while James had successfully earned his master's degree. Together, they made their way to Fort Collins, Colorado, where James commenced his pursuit of a PhD at Colorado State University. Despite the favorable life they were enjoying, Cathy experienced the heartbreak of a miscarriage soon after their relocation to Colorado. However, in April 1978, their fortunes changed as she gave birth to their sole daughter, Sarah, in Fort Collins. As a family of 3, they later moved to Lynchburg, Virginia in 1979, where James assumed a role as an economics educator at Lynchburg College. Even though, during their time at Lynchburg College, James was addressed as Dr. Krauseneck, he had not actually finished his doctoral degree. His dissertation was left pending for a review that was never pursued, ultimately resulting in him not resubmitting his work. As Cathy began urging him to seek a higher-paying job for the betterment of their family, James displayed initial reluctance. However, after his plea for salary increase was turned down, he eventually resolved to pursue better employment. It was at this juncture that he embraced the position of an economist at Eastman Kodak Company. Empowered by James's newly acquired well-paying position and supplemented by financial support from his parents, the Krauseneck family secured a residence at 33 Del Rio Drive in the suburban region of Brighton, New York, conveniently close to the Kodak headquarters. Following their relocation to this new abode, Cathy enrolled Sarah in the nearby Queen of Peace Nursery School. Now, despite the family's growth and prosperity, Cathy began experiencing a sense of loneliness. With Sarah attending school and even participating in dance classes, and her husband frequently occupied with work, Cathy found herself spending a significant amount of time alone at home. Though these concerns weighed on her mind, little did she realize the unforeseen challenges that fate had in store. As the evening of February 19, 1982 descended, a horrifying event befell the Krauseneck family. On that fateful evening, the police received an urgent 911 call detailing a tragic incident within the Krauseneck household. James had just returned home after a tiring day at work, yet what awaited him was a scene of utter devastation. His wife, Cathy, lay lifeless on their bed, an axe still embedded in her skull, and blood spilled all over the bed. Amidst this harrowing sight, their daughter, at the age of 3 years and 10 months, remarkably remained unharmed. With the arrival of officers from the Brighton Police Department at the crime scene at around 5:03 p.m., James recounted his day to Detective Flood, sharing that he left the house at the usual time of 6:30 a.m. for work. He explained that Cathy had intended to spend the day at home caring for their daughter. He himself returned home around 4:50 p.m. It was then that he made the tragic discovery of his wife's lifeless body. Reacting swiftly, he scooped up his daughter and fled the house, seeking refuge at a neighbor's residence to urgently call for assistance. When questioned, young Sarah's responses were perplexing. She described seeing a bad man in their parents' bed, seemingly asleep with an axe in his head. When probed about the man's appearance, she mentioned he was many colors. However, Detective Flood harbored suspicions that Sarah's account might not be accurate, surmising that what she truly witnessed was her mother lying in bed, her body covered in blood. It was at this point that James intervened, halting the interrogation between his daughter and the authorities. Although the police's search for significant forensic evidence like fingerprints yielded no results, they uncovered what appeared to be indications of a deliberately staged burglary. In the year 1982, DNA hadn't yet emerged as an investigative tool, yet there was something about the scene that struck investigators immediately, an eerie sense that the scene had been frozen, as if a burglary had been abruptly halted. One peculiar aspect was the shattered glass pane in a doorway leading into the house, accompanied by a maul, a weighty type of axe positioned on the ground against the wall nearby. Both the axe discovered at the door and the one embedded in Cathy's head were traced back to the Krauseneck family. Inside the dining room, prized items were scattered in disarray. Cathy's purse lay sprawled on the floor, its contents strewn untidily around it. Nearby, a tea set lay overturned, and adjacent to it rested a black garbage bag. Interestingly, inside the bag, a faint shoe print was discernible, as if someone had stepped on it to keep it open, a curious detail adding to the mystery of the scene. Despite the numerous apparent indications of a burglary, Detective Mark Liberatore and Detective Steve Hunt pointed out that the most crucial aspect was conspicuously absent. Nothing had been stolen. Investigators held strong suspicions that the burglary had been meticulously orchestrated as a smokescreen to conceal the true crime, Cathy's murder. To unveil the perpetrator behind the case, the police embarked on an expansive investigation, delving into potential suspects associated with the incident. And their search helped them to uncover their initial suspect, 29-year-old Edward Larrabee, a convicted murderer and offender who lived close by to the couple's residence during that period. At the time of Cathleen Krauseneck's murder, Ed Larrabee worked as a maintenance man at an apartment complex in Greece, another Rochester suburb. By then, he'd already accumulated a disturbing criminal history marked by violent acts against women. Larrabee had earned a reputation as a notorious self-described sociopathic killer of women. Despite his extensive record of transgressions, establishing a direct link between him and the pivotal evidence in this specific crime proved to be a challenging endeavor. The Brighton axe murder case remained shrouded in mystery for a span of 12 years. From 1994, Edward Larrabee was incarcerated, serving 2 life sentences for charges of abuse and attempted murder. The axe murder case continued to stagnate for another 2 decades, during which Larrabee passed away in 2014. However, prior to his demise, he admitted to a series of crimes, including the 1991 killing of Stephanie Kupczynski, a music teacher from Greece, a suburb of Rochester. In addition to his admission, there was another statement that caught the attention of investigators, one that was directly linked to the Brighton axe murder case. Larrabee divulged that he was also responsible for the Brighton axe murder of Cathy Krauseneck, which occurred in February 1982. Yet Larrabee's account diverged from the established timeline and details of the crime. He claimed to have killed Krauseneck in the summer of 1981, when in actuality the homicide occurred in February 1982. Additionally, he inaccurately stated her age as being in her 30s, but she was 29 when the fatal blow was delivered by the axe. These inconsistencies cast doubt on his confession, leaving crucial questions unanswered. Despite this incomplete resolution, the police remained unsatisfied. They sought not just closure, but substantiated outcomes. Rather than concluding the case at this juncture, they persisted in their pursuit. Once again, their investigative focus turned to James Krauseneck. On the day following Cathy's death in 1982, James had returned to Mount Clemens accompanied by Sarah, who was just 2 months away from her 4th birthday at the time. Subsequently, Sarah remained without any contact with her maternal family. In 1986, James entered into a second marriage, which abruptly ended just 9 months later, coincidentally the day after Sarah's birthday. He confided to friends that he'd married to provide Sarah with a maternal presence, though his wife later asserted she believed James felt uncomfortable with her growing closeness to the young child. Beyond this, she expressed shock and bewilderment over his sudden departure. By the early 1990s, James had relocated to Washington State, where he'd married twice more. He embarked on a professional journey with a subsidiary of the Fortune 500 company Weyerhaeuser, gradually climbing the ranks across roles in California and Georgia. Eventually, he returned to Washington State, assuming a position at the company's main corporate headquarters. James and his 4th wife, Sharon, who had married in 1999, found themselves immersed in the very lifestyle that Cathy had once envisioned. During the early 2000s, James and Sharon welcomed another daughter into their life. In 2009, they acquired a French country residence in the sought-after locale of Gig Harbor, situated near Tacoma. This move provided them with a spacious 4-bedroom dwelling featuring 3 fireplaces, including an unconventional one within the master bathroom. Their abode came complete with well-tended grounds and a scenic view encompassing the 8th fairway of Canterbury Country Club. Meanwhile, Sarah relocated to Texas and began her own family. Nevertheless, she remained connected with her father and stepmother and would often speak to them on the phone. James soon secured notable roles within the industry, including a position on the steering committee for Harvard University's Joint Center for Housing Studies. He also assumed a seat on the board of directors for the Southern Forest Pine Association. In 2012, the Krausenecks expanded their real estate holdings by acquiring a second residence in the sought-after Scottsdale, Arizona area. Their new dwelling was a 1-story southwestern adobe-style home featuring a covered patio, ideally situated within a cul-de-sac in the Terraville neighborhood. This move took place following James's retirement from his position as Vice President of Marketing and Sales in the Softwoods division of Weyerhaeuser. As James reveled in a life aligned with his aspirations, a stark contrast persisted for Cathy's family, who yearned for justice. Law enforcement remained steadfast in their belief that substantial evidence against James was necessary to substantiate their long-standing suspicions. Fueled by this determination, they investigated advanced forensic examinations in 2015, seeking a fresh perspective on the decades-old case. Unfortunately, these efforts yielded no conclusive outcomes. Once more, in April of 2015, District Attorney Sandra Dorley and her team re-engaged their investigation, this time with a more precise approach. They embarked on a quest to uncover any evidence that might have escaped notice in the past. One noteworthy piece of evidence was a delicate blue fiber composed of glass, sourced from a broken window within the residence. Dorley's team aimed to correlate this fiber with a previously untested blue knee sock discovered in the house. Exhaustive testing, however, revealed no DNA trace originating from a source outside of the household. This finding significantly weakened the notion of an external perpetrator being responsible for the crime, and as such, Ed Larrabee couldn't have been the murderer. With this breakthrough, Sandra and her team narrowed their focus onto a single potential suspect, Cathy's husband, James. However, they recognized the challenge of not being able to press charges solely on circumstantial evidence. Moreover, there is an additional complication. The time of Cathy's death placed James outside of his home, effectively eliminating him as a suspect for the murder. In June 2015, Police Chief Henderson and Captain Catholdi participated in a meeting of the FBI Buffalo Cold Case Group. During the meeting, they presented the details of the Cathy Krauseneck case to the group. Following a question-and-answer session that saw the exchange of various approaches on how to proceed, the complete case file was handed over to the FBI for the purpose of digital conversion. Chief Henderson also reached out to Cathy Krauseneck's family to inform them about the updated status of the case. A year later, in April 2016, Brighton police detectives Mark Liberatore and Stephen Hunt made an unexpected visit to James Krauseneck's residence in Gig Harbor, Washington, for an interview. During the interview, Detective Liberatore adopted a straightforward stance. He posed a direct question to James, inquiring whether he was involved in his wife's demise. James responded in the negative, stating that he didn't kill Cathy. In response, Liberatore expressed his differing perspective, asserting that he believed James was indeed responsible. Facing the absence of a confession from James, the investigators encountered challenges in substantiating their suspicions. Thus, in 2018, the Brighton Police Department and the Monroe County District Attorney's Office took a proactive step. They enlisted the expertise of pathologist and former New York Chief Medical Examiner Michael Baden to offer an alternate perspective on the potential time frame of Cathy's death. In October 2019, after a long passage of 37 years, a significant breakthrough emerged. Following a comprehensive review of the Monroe County autopsy, toxicology reports, the crime scene, autopsy photographs, and police documentation, Dr. Baden put forth a critical observation. He suggested that Cathy's demise likely occurred around 3:30 a.m. This revelation held substantial weight, as prosecutors postulated that James would have been at home at the time of Cathy's death. The convergence of this newfound information with the findings from Sandra and her team's investigation was beginning to provide a clearer picture of the case. On November 1, 2019, 68-year-old James Krauseneck was formally charged with an indictment. Just a week following the indictment, Krauseneck surrendered to authorities at the Hall of Justice in Rochester, New York. However, during the subsequent court hearing, James entered a plea of not guilty. On September 6, 2022, a complete 40 years following the tragic demise of Cathy Krauseneck, her husband James Krauseneck was brought to trial for her murder. Monroe County District Attorney Sandra Dorley firmly maintained her unwavering belief that James was accountable for Cathy's death. Conversely, defense attorney Bill Easton strongly argued for his client's innocence, stressing that there was no substantial evidence indicating James Krauseneck as the perpetrator of his wife's murder. Prosecutors swiftly presented an expert witness who attested that the footprint discovered within the trash bag matched a distinctive type of footwear, specifically a boat shoe. A pair of such shoes was captured in the 1982 crime scene photograph of the bedroom. However, the shoes that James had worn during that period were not subjected to testing to ascertain if they corresponded to the footprint. Consequently, this line of evidence also became inconclusive. On September 22, 2022, following the delivery of closing arguments, the court relinquished the case to the jury. Their deliberation would determine James's guilt or innocence in Cathy's murder. Notably, the juror's verdict would also carry implications for his wife Sharon and his daughter Sarah. At the time of her mother's death, Sarah was just about 4 years old. Now, at 44, she attended the trial in support of her father. On September 26, 2022, despite Sarah's earnest efforts to stand by her father during the trial, the outcome ran contrary to her hopes. The jury rendered a verdict of guilty against James Krauseneck for the second-degree murder of his first wife, Cathy. Promptly thereafter, law enforcement deputies took him into custody. During the sentencing procedures on November 7, 2022, Sarah, the daughter who was present in the house at the time of her mother's murder, delivered a statement reflecting her disappointment in the verdict. My mother's killer got away with her murder, and my father's life has been taken by a failed justice system that convicted him of a crime he did not commit, she said. In his statement before sentencing, James Krauseneck, who was now 71, spoke to the court for the first time. Krauseneck read a note in which he reaffirmed his love for Cathy and his innocence. In closing, I did not murder Cathy. I love Cathy with all my heart and with all my soul, he said. Nevertheless, the judge ultimately sentenced Krauseneck to 25 years in prison. Finally, after 4 decades of mourning, Cathy's family found a sense of relief in witnessing the culmination of justice being served.
Everybody told us we couldn't win a 40-year-old case, but we did.
How do you feel hearing the verdict?
Well, very, very good. We had a good top investigators and top attorneys.
However, they had just one concern, and it was for Sarah.
I said, Sarah, I love you no matter what happens. And she said, thank you. And now we pray that Sarah will come back to us and be part of us, because she has no family now. She's
been brainwashed for 40 years.
Despite the jury's guilty verdict, James's advocates, including his daughter Sarah, his wife Sharon, and his close-knit family, remained resolute in their belief of his innocence. They remained steadfast in their conviction that he'd been wrongfully convicted of a crime he did not commit. In her court statement, Sharon Krauseneck asserted their intention to appeal the jury's guilty verdict, aiming to ensure that justice is genuinely and accurately upheld. Nonetheless, on May 5, 2023, James Krauseneck passed away on a Friday afternoon within the infirmary of Mohawk Correctional Facility in Rome, New York, at the age of 71. His cancer diagnosis had emerged only after his incarceration. James's demise took place only 6 months after he was sentenced to 25 years to life for the murder of his wife, Cathleen Krauseneck, in a case that became widely recognized as the Brighton Axe murder. So, what are your thoughts on this case? Do you believe that justice was appropriately served, or do you think there might have been other factors at play? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. For more captivating true crime stories, like, share, and subscribe to our channel.